Morgan. I am part of the sell-side business development team at Eurex here in Chicago. And we're part of my team is part of a much broader team at Eurex. We have about 80 people between technology, customer support, and business development, covering both sell-side and buy-side clients in North and South America. So the title of my presentation this year, Driving the Evolution of Financial Markets, is really a very generic topic. And last year, the title was the same. So it's a consistent presentation title, but the content is much different because last year at this time, we were really finalizing the migration of all of our products onto the Eurex T7 platform, which was our new trading platform. So after 15 years on the Eurex Classic system, we sat down and completely rewrote our trading technology and API to create a more robust, reliable, and flexible system, and more importantly, faster. So what has happened in the past year? Timing is everything. Right on the heels of this migration, the German government passed an HFT trading rule. And now speed is a very dirty word. And thanks to a very eloquently written piece of fiction, the perception is that speed is analogous to manipulation. And what we really wanted to focus on, and what we've been focusing on in the past year, is that perception is most certainly not reality, and that that we can certainly have a safe, secure, reliable trading system in a low latency environment. So today, what I want to talk about is a little bit about what the regulation is in Germany, and then how Eurex has reacted. I mean, not even reacted. We have the risk controls in place. We offer the transparency, and we continually do that in order to ensure that our markets are safeguarded against things like flash crashes, rogue algos, and fat finger, any errors that the media is using as ways to villainize HFT. And then finally, given this new landscape that we are in, where speed is really commoditized now and no longer the primary growth engine, what Eurex is doing to grow in the future. So to give a little bit of background on Eurex, we are an electronic marketplace and have access points all over the world, which allows us to connect over 430 members from 30 different countries. And in 2012, Eurex was ranked second in the world by contract volume. Being a part of the Deutsche Börse group, we are able to capture the entire life cycle of the trade. So Eurex is the exchange where transactions and the trading platform are, but we have Eurex Clearing, Clearstream for our settlement, also offer market data and analytics as a separate service, and real-time macroeconomic news through our Market News International. Our goal is really to surround the customer with services to meet all of their trading and risk management needs. And ultimately, this allows Eurex, the exchange, to leverage the opportunities of creating efficiencies in other areas of the trade cycle to grow on the trading platform. So what happened this past year? In May of 2013, the German government passed a law further regulating electronic trading, or what we have called the HFT law. And really these new rules focused on, focused on three things: high-frequency trading firms, messaging, and algorithms. The first one was the big one. The German government said that all high-frequency trading firms need to be properly licensed and registered with the German authority. Now, at the time that they mandated this legislation, high-frequency trading remained undefined. I mean, it was a media term. So we sat down with the BaFin, the German regulator, and went through the parameters of what we defined, came together as what defines a high-frequency trading firm, and that was really 4 criteria. 1, trading on your own account. 2, using black box black box algorithms, no human intervention. 3, trading on low latency infrastructure. And 4, sending a high intraday message rate. And again, the last 2 had to be further defined. What is low latency infrastructure? What is a high intraday messaging rate? And right now, we came up with that the thresholds are that use the lowest latency infrastructure possible, which on Eurex is the 10 gigabit pipes, transaction pipes in co-location, and then sending a high intraday message rate is 75,000 messages a day. So this rule did affect a number of members, and everything from a slight headache to a very big headache. So some members just merely had to acquire the proper licensing, whether they were in Germany or mostly in London or in the EU. They got registered, they got licensed, and then had that license passported into Germany. But the German regulator decided that anyone outside of the EU, that local authority, those licenses were not going to be able to be passported. So we did have members in Switzerland and the US who were affected by this and really had to sit down and decide, is my business strategy high frequency trading, as this German regulator has defined it? And for those who did decide that that was their business strategy, they had to move their business operations into a jurisdiction where they could obtain the passportable license. So there has been a lot of heavy lifting on our members' parts to comply with this piece of the rule in the past year. And and then they had to have everything in place by February 14th of this year. So everybody has complied or is in the process of complying with that law. The second piece, or the next 2 pieces of the law, really focus around messaging, order to trade ratio, and excessive usage fee. So the order to trade ratio really sets limits on the number of order messages, so add, modify, delete in a given day versus the traded volume. And then excessive usage fee is a measurement of all messages, whether it's affecting the order or just queries that hit the matching engine. And obviously both of these are to limit the amount of messaging that participants can send without the intention to trade. Finally, the last piece of the rule went into place on April 1st, and that was the algo flagging piece. This rule, once again, required a definition and required standardization where there wasn't one. What is an algorithm? I mean, it seems pretty self-explanatory when I ask that, but when you get a room full of bank compliance people who who are in charge of this law, you quickly realize that there's no standard term to what defines an algorithm. And we got questions like, well, what if there's human intervention at the beginning of the trade cycle? And what if, but the rest is all executed via an algorithm? Or, where does the algorithm start? What is the distinction between algorithms? If I have a VWAP that I execute on 30 different markets, is that one algorithm, the VWAP, or is it 30? So there was a lot of gray in this law, and it was coming up in February, so very close to when the rule was going into place. It went into place April 1st with the regulator, our trading surveillance office, and the German government fully understanding that an algorithm has yet to be clearly defined and distinguishable amongst what distinguishes one algorithm from another. So the TSO is working with our members very closely to understand how they define algorithms and come up with some standard rules in place. So this is still, even though the law is in place, it's still very much a work in progress. So, I'm not very good at this, so please, any one of you guys remind me that I need to fast forward on the presentation. So, really while the German government was the first to put HFT legislation in place, it's quite obvious that it's not the last, and regulation is here to stay. And what I believe that's coming out of all of this crusade against high-frequency trading, is really it's becoming obvious that it's not the traders, but the infrastructure that really needs to be both bolstered and the safeguards in place. And again, going back to what is perception and what is reality. I mean, obviously this is my opinion, and if you follow me on Twitter, you know I have no shortage of them on how regulation should be enacted. But, you know, one of the things that we constantly strive to do in the past year is to really help the regulator, help the media understand that what their fears are. The safeguards actually exist on Eurex, so those things can't happen. Like, again, I said, fat finger, flash crashes, rogue algos. We have the safety mechanisms in place to mitigate against these electronic errors. So just to go through the list of risk controls we have in place, max order quantity is a fat finger monitor, so every trading ID has to have, every trader has to be permissioned by their clearer to have certain limits on each product. And that's an order entry. So you can't add an extra 0 to your order and send 10,000 lots into the DAX market because your clearer has put limits and thresholds into place. Price reasonability is basically fat finger on the price. Eurex actually has limits set on each product that will not allow traders to enter prices that are certain distances away from the market, obviously not wanting to send some panic signal and spiraling the market out of control. As far as rogue algos or excessive messaging goes into play, comes up, we have message throttling and automatic disconnect on our sessions. So we have two different types of sessions at Eurex, full and light. On the full session, if members are, where their members are routing their orders, if they exceed 150 messages a second, that session's gonna be automatically throttled. And then at 450 messages a second, it's automatically disconnected. So a rogue algorithm would not be able to stuff the matcher because it would be automatically disconnected on its session. With the T7, we added two types of kill switches, the emergency mass deletion and the emergency stop button. So pulling orders out on the mass deletion and then completely halting the trader or the firm with our emergency stop button. And these reside on the Eurex GUI, which is a web-based solution. So even if the member's trading platform or their trading systems go down, all you need is access to the internet, and you can pull the firm out. And with our volatility interrupt, this is a circuit breaker on Eurex to prevent against flash crashes and spikes. So we have set parameters, which we actually do not publish, so that we don't want participants to be able to game our algorithms. But if a market moves too quickly and gaps upward or downward, we actually go into automatic halt. And then we go right back into a pre-market open and an opening auction, and won't open the market until we find a crossing price. So this really is to halt the market and see, is this a electronic error or is this actually where the market is going? And we've done this. We did this a couple months ago. This happened in the DAX, where the ECB came out with information on rates. The DAX gapped downward. We went into a volatility interrupt and opened back up near where the market had started before the rate announcement. So, you know, and then advanced risk protection is actually a new feature, relatively new. We actually introduced it in 2010, and this is, again, just another layer of protection that our traders and our clearing firms asked, where we use post-trade data for pre-trade risk controls. So this is a margin calculation There are actually 4 different types of margin calculations that traders, firms, and clearing members can use, whereby they can look at their P&L, their position, their cash, and set 3 layers of protection. So they can go in and actually set the parameters based on a margin number and say, okay, at X number of dollars or euros, I want to be warned. At X number of euros, I want to be throttled. And at X number of euros, this is catastrophic, pull me out automatically. So clears can set it for themselves and for the firms that they clear. And then actually members who are direct participants can also police themselves. And again, just another layer to ensure that in an electronic marketplace, without any, if you have human error or computer error, that we have the safeguards in place, and we're constantly surrounding this to ensure that there are no disruptions in continuous trading. So, I went through like a laundry list of risk controls that we have in place, and really the point is to demonstrate that there can be a healthy balance between speed and safety. That you don't need to, take away any market integrity in order to increase the speed and performance of the trading system. And I think that is that obviously is not the perception in the market today. Another area that we talk about is transparency, and we believe that the more transparent we are with our data and our trading systems, that the more likely our members are to be able to help us maintain the integrity of the system. So this year we added a new market data feature called the EOBI, Enhanced Order Book Interface, and this is really an order-by-order feed which shows depth into the book on a order-by-order basis. And again, just hoping that this helps our traders and all of our participants in their risk management and trading decisions. We also have been described as being best in class in the transparency in the Eurex network. So we continue to add timestamps onto the Eurex trading system. And we also provide a tool where our members can see their timestamps and their rankings against their peers and against the average in the market or in the network. So the idea here is not only to provide a tool for our members to continue to improve their systems, but also to be able to see if anything is off and notify us if there are any market disruptions. So we have found that this is also a tool to help us maintain the integrity of the system. I am missing notes. All right, now I'm going rogue. So again, this is just more of our transparency. So finally, what are really growth drivers in the future? We talked about what has been going on for the past year, and I always say my role is business development. Well, my role for the past year has been business defense. Just after this HFT law, after that book, how can we help our members just comply with the laws, maintain their business as usual, and really been defending our platform. But it really seems like the bulk of that is over. All the rules have been implemented, and our members are complying and now looking towards the future. And now that speed is really, or the arms race to zero is really almost over, and it's really no longer the primary growth driver in our industry, what's next? And we've really looked at maximizing our members' capital, so capital efficiency. Last year in May of 2013, Eurex Clearing came out with their portfolio margining system, Prisma. So Prisma really does two things. One, it looks at looks at margin from a portfolio standpoint. So looking at interest rates, equities, equity derivatives, instead of a product by product basis. So this allows for much more opportunities of cross margining amongst products and freeing up capital for our members. Secondly, it aligns our margin with our default management position, or default management, this is why I wish I had my notes, process, so that it really more accurately reflects the risk within our customers' portfolios, because it goes through scenarios of liquidating that portfolio in a default. And then there are just another myriad of other opportunities. So what Prisma does for us as the exchange is really allows us to be far more strategic in our product offering. So as an electronic exchange, there's no cost to throwing up a product in the electronic marketplace and hoping that people trade it. But how do you grow a product in the futures market with a 99% fail rate? And so that is what we constantly think about. And with Prisma, what we're doing is sitting there looking at our liquid products, our benchmarks, and saying, okay, how do we add products that will allow our customers to have more cross-margin relief and free up capital that would otherwise be sitting at a clearinghouse? And so I use this slide as an example of what we're doing within all our asset classes, but in the interest rate curve, we're leveraging our stronghold in the Bund, in the French OAT, in the Italian BTP, and saying, okay, how do we fill in the rest of the interest rate curve? Focusing on short-term interest rates, we just announced that we're launching secured funding futures, which is a repo future. So really focusing on the short end of the curve, adding over-the-counter clearing capabilities, so that not only are you cross-margining your listed products, but also adding in your over-the-counter as well. And really hoping that we can be the center place for the marketplace where you can bring your entire portfolio and free up capital. These are all of the products from the US. I want to, before I close, just as an aside, on July 7th, we are launching FX futures and options, which is just very exciting for us, because after many, many years of hard work and frustration, we finally have a launch date, and there is much more to come. So this is my contact information. If you'd like any further information, or if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you. Do we have time for questions? Is there someone here?
Does yours actually have verbiage that you will not have a HFT flash crash scenario?
Like,
So do you guarantee against a flash crash?
well, because we have the volatility interrupt, I mean, again, how do you define a flash crash?
Sure.
I mean, you go on to Twitter and search HFT or search flash crash, and every day Apple's having a flash crash. I mean, so how do you define a flash crash? We have parameters that things like, the massive flash crash that happened several years ago is not, that can't happen on Eurex because we have this volatility interrupt feature. But again, that goes back to the parameters where what we deem that where our volatility interrupt should come into place may be very different from what you think a flash crash is, right? So, I mean, that again goes back to, these are media terms. These flash crash, fat finger, HFT, rogue algo, these are all media terms. And we need to come together as an industry and say, okay, what are the thresholds that we should put in place? And that's not just a standard, it's definitely not a standardized threshold. It's a product by product basis and an exchange by exchange basis. So You know, it's just, I tread very lightly when I use terms like that, of preventing that. And again, it goes back to, you know, speed. And we talk about other exchanges putting in, well, we're not going to allow HFT. We're going to, you know, everything's going to be netted at this X number of micros or X number of millis. Well, who defines it? Is that fast? Who defines that? You know, what's fast? There's no definition. So, you know, before we can make any statements about that, we have to have definitions and parameters and numbers, which we don't.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Megan? Great, thanks, Megan.